Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter. Oh, jeez, I was over-driven. Ouch.
This is, of course, the podcast where we talk with advocates and members of the disability community to educate and inspire better conversation about disability. Hey, my name is Rob Minot, and joining me today, Mr. Space himself, Ryan Fleury.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, it's because there's a lot of space.
There's a lot of space.
And in between your ears.
Oh, ba-dum-bum.
I know. Thank you. Hey, look who else it is. I'm stealing all of his dad joke thunder. It's Mr. Steve Barclay.
Where? Oh, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it says you. How are you gentlemen today on this fine, hot August day?
I'm
loving air conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal here. I think isn't this the hottest? I think this is the hottest it's been this summer, I think, right?
It's supposed to rain this week anyway.
Is it?
It is.
Okay, well, good.
Start cooling down tomorrow.
Well, I heard we're having a really bad forest fire year, too.
Canada is.
Yeah, everywhere is. Europe, the U.S., everywhere.
Well, I think in BC here, we're having one of the, I think I read the other day, it was like the second worst year in quite a while, if ever. Or maybe it was the seventh or something. But anyways, we're up there, and it's weird because here on the Lower Mainland, there is no smoke, so it's kind of forget when there isn't anything sort of happening in our general area that it's still pretty bad in other areas. So
indeed, as of August 2nd, we had 3,872 wildfires to date.
Wow,
really?
And right now there are 700 active fires with 470 rather being out of control.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild.
And there's still like 2 months left of summer.
Yep. Yeah, we average about 8,000 a year.
Crazy.
Man.
On the flip side of that, guess what?
What?
4.5 months till Christmas.
Oh, shut up.
Really? Really? Want to get the Christmas card?
All right, let's go to Halloween. 2 months till Christmas. 2.5 months till Halloween.
that I can get behind.
Oh, listen, a month to pumpkin spice season, so that's
there
even
you
better.
go.
Yeah. Even better.
Yes.
Okay, enough inane banter. Because I want to get on with the meat of today's show, because I'm very excited.
All right.
About this, I know that you guys are excited too, especially me and Steve, because we're big geeks. And space always excites us. So, I almost said it.
Don't do it.
Without any sort of other delay. See what I did there? Nice,
I
right?
do. Yeah, I see that.
Let's get on with the show. And hey, Ryan.
Yeah, Rob.
What the heck are we doing today?
Well, today we have a guest who is translating rhythm and harmony of the cosmos into music using data sonification. He is astrophysicist and musician, Dr. Matt Russo. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we are excited. For the listeners out there that may not know you or may have not heard the show that Christine was on, can you share a little bit of background about yourself, maybe both as an astrophysicist and a musician?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I had this really tough decision to make between my two passions, which were music, because I played guitar, and astronomy. And since I couldn't decide, I just prolonged that decision as long as humanly possible. So I tried to just do both. I started with a jazz guitar degree. And while I was doing that, I was studying astrophysics on the side as my electives. And then when I finished that, I did a full astrophysics degree and I was playing music on the side in a band. And when I came to the end of my postdoc, when I would actually have to make the decision of kind of which path to take, that's when I discovered data sonification, thanks to this discovery of a very musical solar system. And that's what led me to all of my work today in data sonification.
Okay, so that leads immediately to the question, are you a member of the Hong Kong Cavaliers, and do you personally know Buckaroo Banzai?
That doesn't make much sense to me.
That's fair. That's a very
I'm not getting the reference.
80s science fiction reference. Yeah.
Okay.
What was there something in your childhood or whatever? What sparked your initial passion for, say, space and astronomy? We'll start with.
Well, I might be able to trace it back to when my dad took me out with a telescope, and it's something that kind of just grew over my childhood. And then once I got to high school and I took a real physics course and I discovered, Einstein and black holes and curved space and all that, I was just completely hooked. It was just an obsession to dig into this world of the unknown in outer space.
Did you have music lessons and stuff? Were you a music kid as well as a science kid? Did you sort of juggle both, or is that something that you sort of, like you mentioned, combined later on?
Well, yeah, I combined them later on because I had no idea there were any connections between the two. So I was always just interested in math and science, and I was kind of forced to take piano lessons when I was young, and that didn't stick. And then I wanted to play violin for a year or so, and then that didn't stick. And then when I was 13, around maybe 11 or 12 or 13 is when I first heard Nirvana. And then I just decided to get an electric guitar, and it was very clear that that's a path I should follow.
Corrupted by grunge.
No, that flannel, man, that flannel. The 90s flannel, it was a thing.
I had a closet full of that stuff.
Let's sort of dive right in then to talk about sonification, because I'm really fascinated by this. For those who are unfamiliar with the term, could you kind of describe what exactly we mean when we're talking about sonification?
Sure. Sonification is just converting data into sound. And it's an analog of visualization, which is more common. So you take data of any form and you can draw it in a graph or a table of values, but you can also listen to it. And so sonification is about listening to patterns in data instead of looking at them or reading them.
So in terms of this field, then how new is this?
Well, the first references to similar ideas goes back thousands of years. This goes way back to Pythagoras and Kepler. So Kepler, he's famous for discovering some laws of planetary motion, but he was also fascinated with looking for an underlying musical harmony in the solar system. And so he converted the newly discovered orbits of the planets, which he helped to understand, into musical passages. And so it's a very old idea. Of course, it's much easier now with technology. We can take data and use a computer to directly map it to sound waves or to musical pitches. And so there's several examples through history. Sometimes they're very functional, such as a Geiger counter. A Geiger counter, you're not listening to the radiation. You're listening to a sonification of the data of radiation hitting the detector. And I'd say around the 60s and 70s, when people got more experimental with music, is when sonification got a little bit of a boost. But definitely in the last 10 years or so, it's completely exploded. There's dozens of teams around the world working on this now.
And was it mainly a sort of technological advances that has really driven that, or how does AI sort of factor into it these days? Well,
the technology is a big part because most of what I do is computer programming. I'm taking data and I'm using a computer program to control control music with the data. So I'm deciding what aspects of the data, maybe it's the value of the numbers, controls which aspects of sound, maybe it's the volume or the pitch. And that can be done manually, but it's so much easier and more efficient with a computer program. So now that programming is a much more common skill, there's many more people using it for sonification. I haven't seen too many uses of AI in the field, though, which is kind of interesting. Everyone always thinks there's got to be some good use for it.
Right.
The only uses I've been able to think of are ones that will take over my job, basically. If I could train an AI on doing what I do, then I wouldn't need to do what I do. But I'm sure there's something out there. I just no one's really hit on it yet.
Right.
Matt, are there any rules or standards when it comes to creating data sonification? You mentioned there's teams around the world. Is everybody just kind of doing their own thing with pitches and velocities and all that other stuff, or is there a set of rules?
Yeah, that's a source of debate actually in the sonification world. Yeah, it's a new field, and there aren't many consistent standards. That's partially what makes it fun for me, is because there's many options and many different ways to convert data into sound. There are some that are more natural than others, and there are people researching this and trying to define some best practices. But yeah, it's still you're always partially in the art world when you do this. At least I am for all the work that I do. There's no complete cookie cutter recipe for how to convert data into meaningful sound.
So if you decide to use a bongo drum to, I don't know, simulate a pulsar star exploding, somebody else might use, I don't know, an accordion or something. Like there's no real...
Okay, I want to hear that.
Yeah, that's right. But, most people would agree that even if you were just looking in the art world itself, some artists are better than others. Some musicians are better than others. So there are better and worse choices. And to me, in sonification, that means... for me, it usually means finding more intuitive choices that resonate, that bring the data to life. So, yeah, maybe a bongo drum isn't the best choice for a pulsar.
Right.
But, yeah, there is a creative, artistic element.
So when we're talking about astronomical data being turned into music, what kind of data specifically are we talking about?
It could really be anything. So my first sonification project was on sonifying planetary orbits. So in that case, you have a system of planets, and each planet has its own frequency, its own period. And so it's very natural to essentially speed up that motion so that you can associate it with rhythms or musical pitches. But you can do it with any kind of data. You can do it with data that is directly coming from a star. So you can take the brightness variations of a star, and if you want, you can directly map that to a sound wave. It might not sound very good, but you can do it if you want to communicate something about that star's brightness changing. Or you can take image data, which is a lot of the work I do, is taking data that's usually experienced as an image and finding ways to listen to that.
In your experience, are certain types of data, do they lend themselves better to sonification than others?
No, that's a big element. Usually what the problem is communicating what's happening. So whenever you do a sonification, you've got to have some kind of legend, right? If you want the sounds to be meaningful, the listener has to understand, that a higher pitch means this, a higher volume means this. And so the best data to use for that, as in the most intuitive that requires the least amount of explanation, is when the data already happens over time. So the example of planetary orbits, the planets are actually orbiting in time, and you're just speeding up the time. Or if you take another sonification of events happening, it could be anything, maybe all the supernovas that go off in the sky. It's the actual data is already something happening in time, and so it becomes more intuitive to sonify it as music, which is always happening in time. So those will always be more natural, but you could use any type of data you want.
What do you use for a time signature when you're doing this, or do you vary your time signatures depending on the subject?
Well, most of the time there's no time signature. We're in a post time signature world here, where sometimes there's no rhythmic grid at all. If you map, say, the stars in an image from left to right in time, then they're not on a grid. They're just in the random spots on the sky, essentially, in clusters or whatever the shape is. And so, there's no need to introduce a time signature or a rhythm. But in other cases, sometimes we'll be listening to data that is already kind of grouped in say weeks or months. Maybe I'm looking at how many exoplanets were discovered every month, and then by the nature of that data, it's already regular in time, and so then we have some freedom. We can put a drum beat behind it, and we can use 4/4 or 3/4 or whatever helps tell the story we're trying to tell.
So it's jazz.
It's often very abstract jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. Universal bebop, right? So it must be really, really interesting to, do this sonification and be able to listen to something and be able to really learn even just from the sonification, because you're comparing and contrasting against other images that you've sonified. Has there been times when you put something through the sonification process and you're actually legitimately surprised at the results?
Yes, I could think of a few examples. So one is some cases of planetary orbits. So definitely the first solar system I sonified is called TRAPPIST-1, and I knew based on the ratios of orbits that it was going to be somewhat musical. The notes were going to work well together, but putting it through the algorithm and then hearing the actual complex rhythms and harmonies that came out, I wasn't really prepared for that. It was much more musical than I even expected. And then we tried a similar thing on the planets of the inner solar system, and right away, both me and my collaborator, Andrew, both noticed it sounded exactly like a Radiohead song called True Love Waits. It's actually Radiohead's saddest song. So wow. That was one big surprise. And then we just went all out and we got a singer that could sing kind of like Tom York and put it all together.
So talk to us a little bit about the process then. What tools and technology do you actually use?
Yeah, so it starts with getting the data. So sometimes the data is a CSV file of numbers. Sometimes it's an image. And if it's an image, I usually stare at it for a long time and then decide which tools to use. Often what I do is if it's an image, I actually start in Photoshop to do some visual processing to help separate some elements. And then most of the work is done in a Python script. So I'm writing Python code, nothing too crazy, just some functions I've built up over the years. And I use that to map the data into either sound waves directly or into what are called MIDI notes, which are a way of communicating pitches and notes that could be played on different instruments. And if I go that route, then I use a program called Logic Pro, which is just a generic music production software where you get to choose different instrument sounds and do music production.
Wow. So it's this you're not using supercomputers. You're really using stuff that anybody could access.
Yeah, it's probably much simpler than people think.
So what's kind of the process then when you're trying to decide what aspects of the data are translating into which musical elements? Is there sort of a creative component to this where you can try different things, or do you kind of, again, asking back to what Ryan was talking about, do you have a process and sort of standards that you adhere to yourself when you're producing sonification?
Yeah. So it depends. Some sonifications don't require very many musical choices. So some sonifications, such as if you're sonifying the vibrations of the sun, there's data of that shows which frequencies are present, and you can directly map it into a sound wave. You don't have to choose scales or harmony or anything. Other cases, like sonifying an image, then you have to make a ton of decisions about what to map to sound and how. And so a lot of it is is first deciding on what's the key element. So sometimes when I look at an astronomical image, sometimes it's the color or the variation in color that really stands out. Sometimes it's the shape of the galaxies as they're being bent, or sometimes it's the texture. And so it starts with that. I figure out what is the actual one thing I want to communicate through sound. And then I try to think of the most intuitive way to do that. So usually with images, it's pretty intuitive to map brightness to volume, so that the dark parts of the image are silent and the bright parts are louder. And it often makes sense, if color is what I care about, it makes sense to map color to musical pitch. And there's some intuitive ways to do that I've kind of established as my standards, but other people could make different decisions. And sometimes that's how I start to approach it. And then sometimes I try it and it just doesn't work at all. And I can't hear the features I'm trying to hear. And so I try a different approach. Maybe I'll map the position in the image to a musical pitch to help your ear pick out more where in the image objects are instead of what colors they have.
Right.
So there's a lot of trial and error, but over the years, personally, I've just found things that seem to be intuitive and make sense.
Well, I definitely think having that legend to help people understand what the sound is representing is super helpful, because I know I was listening to some videos on YouTube today, and I was just like, bing, bong, boom, boom, boop, boop, boop. And it's like, what? I have no idea what's going on, right? I'm totally blind myself, so I just didn't know. But if there was a legend to go along with that, then I could have understood that, this was brightness, this was darkness, this was whatever.
Yeah, that's completely critical if the goal is for people to learn something and to understand something about the data from the sound. Otherwise, it's just pretty sounds. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I try to make sure that they work on different levels. So I try to make them musically interesting. But at least for the work I do, you need a legend because I'm trying to communicate something very concrete that I got from the data. It's not all just random mashing on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you ever find that you have to compromise, say, your scientific accuracy for even just like clarity, or just for being like, well, this is going to sound white noise?
Yeah, it's always a balance. There's definitely compromises in the work I do. You can't. So sound has some advantages. For example, our ear is capable of detecting multiple streams of audio coming in and separating them. So when you listen to a band play, your ear is able to pick out, this is the drums playing, and now I can listen to the bass if I want, or the guitar. So it's very powerful in some ways, but when you're dealing with converting something like an image into sound, there's no way to communicate all of the information from the image into sound. You have to throw away some of it. I can't actually communicate what every pixel is doing. It wouldn't be meaningful to the ear.
Right.
And so that's where the process, that's the hard part, really, is finding that balance of figuring out which aspects of the data are not important to your audio story and which ones are.
Right. And do you find that sometimes there's like a bit of a war between your musical side and your scientific side?
Usually there's some cases that I'm not allowed to touch that musical sense if the data is a more direct translation. But if you're talking about mapping an image to music or data points that aren't inherently musical, then there's, I used to think that I really had to stick with the data and it wasn't worth doing if I couldn't do a direct mapping. But once I started loosening those constraints and mapping, say, the brightness of pixels to musical pitches that I choose, it kind of opened up a whole world for me. And I got much more positive response from people because people actually enjoyed it from a musical perspective. And as long as I can maintain that the data is in there and it's understandable by someone that knows the legend, then I'm happy.
Right.
Hey everyone, Steve here, breaking from the banter for a quick word about Canadian assistive technology. When you're considering assistive tech, we know it's a major decision and every penny counts. That's why we're committed to making your experience as supportive as possible. Our team has over 35 years of experience in the assistive technology sector, bringing expertise, empathy, and service to our customers. We don't just sell products. Our number one concern is ensuring your needs are met. We offer free consulting and will make the best recommendation we can, even if the best solution isn't a product we sell. You'll get peace of mind with our price matching policy, guaranteed if you find a lower advertised price. To get you started, we include 1 hour of free remote training with every single product. And for those big purchases, we now offer flexible payment plans through Partially, allowing you to break payments into 2 to 12 monthly installments. We provide toll-free phone support for all products and work with our service partner, Chaos Technical Services, for quick repairs. Plus, our unique loan program lets you try out demo equipment to ensure the device is the right fit before you commit. At Canadian Assistive Technology, we're dedicated to making sure we find the right assistive technology solution for you. Visit us online at www.canastech.com or call us toll-free at 1-844-795-8324. And now, back to the show.
So let's talk a little bit then about the really exciting part about this accessibility and inclusion part of it. So can you kind of give us a little bit of an overview on just what sonification means in terms of accessibility and inclusion and how you sort of got involved in that part of it?
Yeah, so I made my first sonification of a planetary system called TRAPPIST-1, and the point of it was to make that scientific story of this amazing solar system more accessible to kids. That was my first goal. I wanted to explain these resonances in the system, and I'm not just going to get up and write numbers on the board. I had to make them feel it and understand it. And so in that sense, I tried to make the information more accessible to a young audience. But I was immediately contacted by someone who was blind, saying this is the first time I can really experience what a solar system is doing. There are many visualizations of planets orbiting, but having this audio and musical version of a solar system really resonated with this particular person. And so that's when I started to see the potential for accessibility for people who are blind or vision impaired. And then I started getting contacted by more people that appreciated it. And so I started doing more work focused on that community. I made a whole planetarium show, which was an audio tour of the cosmos, because we had this planetarium at U of T at the University of Toronto, where I was working. And it was, if you couldn't see the images, it was a completely boring show. And so I wanted to make something where sound was the focus. And so it did have visuals, but the focus was listening to different systems from the Earth all the way out to the edge of the observable universe. And so that was very popular with people who were blind. And I got to meet a lot of interesting people and learn more about this world of accessibility. And so since then, I realized that that was a little bit of good I can do in the world. And it was personally so rewarding that I made it a part of everything I did after that.
Obviously, a really big hit with the blind and low vision crowd. But have you gotten any feedback, say, from other astrophysicists that are, say, visually impaired, or have you engaged with sort of anybody else in the field that has been really excited about this as well? Yes. So believe it or not, there are conferences based on astronomy sonification. And so when I go to those, I'll meet blind astronomers that use sonification in their work. And so they're using it more for actual scientific discovery. But actually, one of them does that, and he also is very active in outreach. This is Nick Bond. And so he appreciated what I was doing because he was doing his own version of the same thing. So with the blind astronomers I know, they part of the reason they appreciate it is not even so much for themselves. It's to help other people understand how they process information and experience the world. I've heard that from a few people. Yeah, I think it's a really, really great example of even the universal design, because I really see that this, sonification really benefits everybody, sighted learners as well, right? Because it allows us to engage with this stuff using different senses, and I think that that's always is going to help us understand these concepts, especially like something as heady as astrophysics. For the common person, I think this is just as cool as for anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a bit of a surprise to us when we posted our image sonifications online. Actually, NASA posted some that got a ton of traction, and most of the people enjoying it and sharing it were not blind or low vision.
Right.
And then we did a research study with 4,000 participants, and I think a good fraction were blind or low vision, maybe 30% or 40%, and there was no difference in the reported enjoyment or learning outcomes. It was a hit with everyone.
Right. Yeah. Same thing. I would seem that this is great for kids to really engage with and help them understand.
Yeah, they seem to really get sucked in, to be honest. When sometimes we do physical installations. So
Yeah.
one thing we've done for JPL at NASA is it's called a sonification wall. So it's like a 10-foot projection screen, but it can sense where your hand is if you put your hand up to the screen. And so our first image was of a world map of the oceans. So picture a world map, and there's ocean currents. And as you move your hand around the image physically, it converts the temperature of the water into musical pitches. And so that's one way for someone to explore an image in space and sound. And the kids were just fighting over that.
Tell us a little bit about the collaborations that you've had on different sonification products or projects rather, with either others astrophysicists or even musicians, or in the case of Christine, accessibility advocates. Talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've worked on and have developed.
Yeah, so we get contacted very often by musicians who just want to sample what we've done and take it somewhere else. So that tells me they're interesting sounds in their own right. And we get contacted by scientists who want us to help them share their amazing discovery. So one example is a geologist who studies the historical record of large volcanic eruptions and connects that with tectonic motion. Wow. and the Earth's the patterns of the Earth's crust fragmenting and merging. So interesting stuff, but we were talking. The data is about the Earth's evolution over time, and so it made sense to sonify the exploding volcanoes over time to help tell the story.
Right.
We've worked for other astronomers. So sometimes when an astronomer discovers a musical solar system, they'll contact us and ask us to figure out what it sounds like. And with people who are blind, well, yeah, Christine Malik has, you know her because you've talked to her. She's an inspiration. She's an amazing poet and thinker. And she's been part of the team that I work on at NASA to do image sonifications. And she's just been great because, when I'm doing an image sonification, I know what the image looks like, and I know the pattern I'm trying to communicate. And she's a really good test of if that's successful, because she can just listen to it and tell me exactly what's clear and what's not without the kind of bias of seeing the image. Right. And she also knows a lot about astronomy, so she can understand the story we're trying to tell. So that's been a very, very fruitful collaboration. Yeah.
So what about in the future? Like, are there other scientific fields or even, say, astronomical phenomena or events that you haven't sonified that you're kind of excited to take a shot at?
Well, I've spent the last, how many years has it been now? last 8 years ticking things off that list. And so there aren't that many left, but it's science and astronomy. So there's always something new around the corner. So it's not something I can prepare for. I'm just excited about what the next discovery is and hope that it turns into something musical.
So in your head, do you sort of see a future for this blending of science and the arts? Where do you see this going? Like, could this just become something that becomes a standard research tool?
That's possible. I would like to see it develop more purely for accessibility of scientists, of blind scientists. There's still a long way to go there because the whole the science, the institution of science right now is not designed for people who are blind, so it's very challenging. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but in general, I just kind of want to see it become a more commonplace way of interpreting and experiencing data, because right now it's got a bit of a novelty factor,
right.
And actually a lot of people misunderstand it. So they'll hear a sonification and they won't be told the context or what it actually means, and so they'll get the wrong idea. And I'm talking about people that think that they're actual recordings of galaxies in deep space and things like that. And so first I just want people to get more familiar with it and understand what it is and what it's not, so that we can use it as a tool.
Yeah, well, listen, the first galaxy that's out there that has a good hook. I feel like it's going to be huge, right? Because that's public domain. Spotify can't charge you royalty on that.
Right.
If you get a middle six, do you freak out?
That's happened before. Yeah. So when I'm sonifying planetary systems, I'm looking for the ones that are in resonance, because I know they'll be more musically harmonious in some sense. But if you just take any random system, you're going to get all kinds of interesting wonky intervals.
What is the most musical planetary object or system or whatever item has been the most musical for you so far?
I would say it's the very first sonification I've done of the TRAPPIST-1 solar system. Yeah, wow. It's, even after all these years, it's still just a remarkable system. It's 7 planets and they're all locked in a musical resonance together in a particularly simple one. It's the chord they make is something that you can play on the piano with 2 hands. It's in a nice tight human range, and the rhythms aren't too unfamiliar. So for me, that's still the winner. No one's topped that.
Interesting. Yeah, that one was pretty cool. I listened to that earlier today. Is there a library or a database where all this or some of this content or creations are shared?
NASA has a webpage called Universe of Sound that collects all of the image sonifications we've done for them. And my website, System Sounds, has everything I've done. So that has several planetary orbits. But, I just remembered, there is something called the Data Sonification Archive. That's the answer to your question. Someone did put together a data sonification archive. And so anybody can submit, and then it gets filtered to make sure it's actually a sonification. And there's thousands there. And so they're even using that for further research. They're looking at trends in sonification itself, because it's turned into something pretty big.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah, someone's like, hey, who put this Radiohead song in here? What's going on? What's going on?
Knock it in.
We just need to know where people can find out more about Matt.
Well, you can go to my website, which is system-sounds.com, or just look up Matt Russo and I'll come up.
Wonderful. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with all the future sonifications, and very excited about this field, and hopefully everyone will go check it out.
All right, thanks for having me. Great to meet you all.
You as well.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, have a good night.
Thanks. You
Take
too.
care. there you go. Pretty cool.
It is very cool if you can get your head wrapped around the data.
I know.
Thank goodness for the music component.
Yeah, I felt bad that I was running that interview because I was like, man, you're talking to a guy that got 30% in physics 11, like, and that's as hard science as I managed to get in my lifetime. So,
You were an overachiever.
Yeah, all I knew about was the apple falling on someone's head.
yeah. So, but no, it's super interesting stuff. I really do.
It
We
really is.
do not do it justice. I'd recommend everybody again go check out the links in the show notes. Look them up. All those videos are really fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff that makes astrophysics pretty approachable, even for a bunch of dummies like us. It's hard to believe that there's a galaxy out there that sounds like Radiohead, though. That surprised me. Would not expect Radiohead.
Or is there a band that sounds like a galaxy?
We should have asked that. We should have asked that.
I mean, let's face it, the galaxy's been around a lot longer than Radiohead.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Radiohead probably you'd rip them off, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think there's probably a galaxy out there that's going to file copyright suit.
I wonder if he's done one on the dark side of the moon.
Ooh, there you go. Who knows? Yeah,
Like mapping all the craters on the dark side of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I wonder if you could do something like you take Dark Side of the Moon and then you sort of map it over
Sink
some
it.
of a sonification, like they do with the Wizard of Oz. Like there's that old
That's right.
urban legend that you can line up Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz and it lines up perfectly. I don't know if that's true, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, who knows? But or why not take a sonification and then like overlay it and make a song out of it? Like just add some tracks. Like, who knows?
Again, that's called jazz.
That's right.
He said abstract jazz.
There you go.
Yep.
Anything else to say about that?
Nope.
Well, then let's wrap this puppy up.
Let's do it.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Where can people find us?
Well, they can find us online at www.atbanter.com.
Hey, they can also drop us an email if they so desire at Sorry, that was me sonifying the email. No, I'm just kidding. It's cowbell at atbanter.com.
Already rang it.
I know. It's fine. Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Where else can they find us?
They can find us wherever they listen to their podcasts.
Yeah, that's right. Although, wait a minute. Wouldn't they already be listening to this wherever they listen to their podcasts already if they're listening to it?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, actually. We've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm just realizing that. Why do we say that?
That's
Because
an
there might
excellent
be
question.
new listeners.
But they would be listening to...
But they've already found us somewhere.
That is true.
Yeah, they're listening. They're literally listening to this wherever they listen to podcasts.
It's a good thing we're not doctors of astrophysics.
That's for sure.
Or logic.
Oy vey. All right. Well, on that note, see what I did there? Note. Sonification.
Note.
Get it? Music. Sonification. We just threw that one in for free, everybody. That is going to about do it for us this week. Big thanks, of course, to Dr. Matt Russo for joining us. And we will see everybody next week.
Now, this podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions, as well as physical access solutions and augmentative communication aids across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com, or if you're in the Vancouver Lower Mainland, visit our storefront at number 106 828 West 8th Avenue in Vancouver. That's one block off Broadway at Willow. You can reach us by phone toll-free at 1-844-795-8324, or by email at sales@canastech.com.